Well, okay, I guess it's time for some more First Corinthians. What is our goal as we study the Bible in these lectures, whatever? Uh, I do not mean to promote any sort of belief or unbelief. I just assume that, like me, you were very curious about and fascinated by the Bible. And so, my goal is to elucidate it if I can, especially by way of trying to break through the standard orthodox conventional readings. Sometimes they're right on the target, in my humble opinion, sometimes not. And a broader look at the background of the text and the events and the people and the ideas presented in it sometimes make this or that Bible passage seem to mean something quite different. And that is both challenging and enlightening. It's sort of an exciting thing to me, or I wouldn't have been studying this stuff for the last half century. Boy, oh boy. Well, longer than that now, I guess. That would mean I started it when I was 19, but it was earlier than that. I'd say it's about 52 years now. Anyway, okay. Remember in chapter 1, Paul is saying that he has no interest in the wisdom of this world, the zeitgeist, all that stuff, nor of sophisticated rhetoric or anything like that. And the one reason for, well, the two reasons for it, that human thinking, I guess because of sin, is so off target that what passes for wisdom really is far from the from its goal. You're not going to get wisdom from that source. And beyond that, though, even if you are promoting the gospel that he does, if you try to argue your way into convincing your hearers by complex apologetics, whatever you want to call it, that's not really going to do what you want, because if anything, you will have a kind of surface intellectual commitment to this theory that you now find cogent. But, people's thinking changes, and even about this, it will change, especially if you're of a curious turn of mind and you want to give a hearing to other philosophers, other religious advocates, and make up your mind there. He doesn't want you to do that because, again, the convincement you might receive would be of the gospel or of one of its rivals. It's going to be superficial. It's not going to strike deep to create real faith, like Tillich would say, ultimate concern. Like I find Jacques Derrida's deconstructivism to be very fascinating, striking, enlightening for some purposes, but it is an intellectual convincement. I first thought it was absurd based on my superficial acquaintance with it, and once I read more about it, I thought, wow, I think this guy is right. Carol Price. Oh, just 1 second. Carol, hi, I'm doing the show. How you doing? Oh, okay, just called you before, just to let you know where I was. Okay, see you later. But that was the brains of the outfit, my wife Carol. But it's not something I couldn't be argued out of. It was an opinion, still is. But, these things change. Who knows? Maybe I'll return to thinking it's nonsense again, but it was never my ultimate concern. And what Paul wants is what Tillich would call an ultimate concern with Christ, something that changes your whole orientation and so forth. And let's see. He says here, uh, I too, brothers, when I came to you, I did not come armed with excellent rhetoric or wisdom as I announced to you the witness to God. I had decided that while among you, I should offer no other answer to any question but Jesus Christ and Him crucified. In other words, not something fancy like, oh, he was the heavenly revealer and here's the esoteric wisdom that he propounded. No, Christ and Him crucified. And it was in weakness and fear and much trembling that I was with you, I freely admit. And my speaking and my proclamation were not marked by sophistical rhetoric, but by a definitive display of spirit and power. Otherwise, you should have placed your faith in human wisdom, not in divine power. The root is not going to strike deep like in Jesus' parable of the soils, right? In fact, however, verse 6, in fact, however, we do utter wisdom among the perfect, though hardly a wisdom of this temporal world, nor of the archons who rule it and who are rapidly being brought to nothing. What is this? Sounds kind of like Gnosticism. And it's an esoteric wisdom, which is why he didn't preach it publicly. He just, apparently he's being challenged by critics and say, well, this is just kid stuff. This is just Sunday school. And he says, well, if you're ready for it, there is deeper wisdom. Now, here's one of these many places in First Corinthians where I think we've got a new writer here. Somebody has added something, and that somebody is a Gnostic Christian, a Valentinian, who knows what kind, who is saying, in fact, he's replying to critics that say, where are you guys getting this stuff? The archons and the pleroma. What? Paul didn't say anything about this stuff. And their point is, well, he didn't say it to you, maybe, but he did say it to others who were more advanced. And I'll now share that with you. See what you think of it. In other words, it seems to me that this is an attempt to make Paul into a Gnostic. But I mean, that it may nonetheless be closer to what he taught. Who knows? We're dealing, I think, with rival Paulinist viewpoints, just like you got debates within Lutheranism, within Calvinism, within Pentecostalism. You're still in the same ballpark, but you got something of a different nuance to it. Well, these were Gnostic Paulinists. In fact, Valentinus, the greatest of the Gnostics in the early 2nd century, he claimed that he had been by a Theodas or Theudas, who was himself a disciple of Paul. So he could tell you what his credentials were, that he was definitely like apostolic succession. In other words, is that true? Who knows? There's no way to know at this point. Okay. Let's see. Verse 7, but we speak a wisdom of God known in a mystery and hidden away, preordained by God before the dawn of time to result in our transfiguration into the divine splendor. One which none of the archons ruling this worldly age so much as suspected. Had they known, they never would have crucified the Lord of splendor. Now, this seems to me to be a kind of a glancing reference to the kind of Christology we read in the Ascension of Isaiah, where it says when Christ came into the world, he had to pass through the successive spheres that are concentric around the earth. And there are different life forms in each sphere. It almost sounds like science fiction. And the more you go up, which is what the Gnostic does at death, because he's free of the body, he won't be reincarnated, and he goes up from one to the other, shedding material and other bodies he has until his pure spirit, the divine spark, is all that's left, and it merges back into the pleroma. Well, Jesus, when he came to earth, had to do the opposite. He had to assume the kind of bodily existence of the entities on each planetary sphere level. And why did he have to do that? Well, ultimately, he's aiming at becoming a human, right? So he'd have to put on one diving suit on top of another just to fit in, but also to slip past the archons, the planetary rulers, who are always guarding the gates of their spheres, so as to prevent the escape of the enlightened ones. They don't want you to be saved and to enter the pleroma, because if everybody does that, that's it for animated life. Remember, in Gnosticism, the photons, as I would call them, of the primordial man, the Adam Kadmon, the heavenly man of light, they were stolen in an ambush by the archons and then inserted into the mud pie mannequins of the lifeless bodies awaiting awakening. And this was like putting the battery into the flashlight. It gave intelligence and enabled motion and all that. Well, if all of those light sparks managed to escape through realization of their true nature and go back to the pleroma, that's it. Everybody just falls like marionettes with the strings cut. In fact, that's pretty much what they are. Well, so they're guarding, like the guards on the Berlin Wall, to keep East Germans from escaping and going to the West, where things were a lot better. Okay, so if they'd have known who they were dealing with, the archons would never have engineered the crucifixion of the Lord of Splendor. Now, did this writer picture the archons as manipulating human agents, Herod, Pilate, Caiaphas, and all that? Could be, but it doesn't say that. It just says that they crucified the Lord of Doxa, glory. Now, does that mean, as mythicists say, that this was a celestial crucifixion, that this writer did not suppose Jesus had actually come to earth, but up there was crucified in heaven? What does that mean? Well, it had to do with astrology. They were big on astrology, and the cross they were thinking of was the boy, I can never get the terminology right as many times as I try to explain this. Where what is it? The equinox and the ecliptic cross, something like that. For some reason, it just won't stick with me. But that was the nexus, and that's where it was like an earthly cross, analogous to it. And so he was crucified there. It's very, very similar to the Vedic idea that Purusha, the primal man, sacrificed himself in a kind of heavenly version of the Vedic sacrifices that would eventually appear on earth. And this would be the same thing. I tend to think that is the case. Not everybody does, obviously. But again, I'm just trying to indicate possibilities that one does not often hear. Okay, but at verse 9, but as it is written, things which eye saw not, and ear heard not, and never arose in the human mind. How many such revelations has God prepared for those who love him? For God revealed them to us through the Spirit. You see, the Spirit scrutinizes all things, even the depths of God. That's interesting. We read in Revelation 2:24 that there is a prophetess who is given the nasty nickname Jezebel. Remember, she was a Phoenician queen of northern Israel, and she was promoting the worship of her native god Baal Melkart in Israel, where he had no business being worshipped. He was the proper god of the Phoenicians, not the Israelites, and she's breaking that boundary. Um, so, in the same way, the writer of Revelation is comparing someone, and some people think it was Lydia, who's mentioned in Acts 16, who knows, that she was teaching Gnostic doctrine and libertinism and so on. And it says in Revelation that she is teaching the depths of Satan, or the deep things of God, the deep things of Satan. But of course, it means the inner esoteric wisdom. And of course, she must have been saying, "I'll show you the depths of God." It's this is a pejorative way of saying what she claims is the deep truth of God is just blasphemous fantasy. Of course, she's probably thinking the same thing about John of Patmos, right? Okay. Verse 11, after all, among human beings, who knows the truth of a person except that person's own inner spirit? Just so, no one has come to know the truth of God except for God's Spirit. And we did not receive the spirit of the cosmos, but the Spirit that comes from God, so we may grasp the secrets freely given us by God. The very secrets we relate, not in terms of learned rhetoric, but of that taught by the Spirit, conveying spiritual matters to those who have the Spirit. But the natural man can make nothing of the truths of the Spirit of God, since to him they appear nonsense. Indeed, he is simply incapable of grasping them, for they can be understood only by means of the Spirit. But the pneumatic, the spiritual one, on the one hand, understands everything, but on the other is understood by no one. For who knew the Lord's thoughts to be able to instruct him? Well, that would ordinarily mean, well, nobody. It's just a rhetorical thing. Who could know this? Nobody. But we do have the mind of Christ, the Spirit. Right? And here are the three categories of humanity according to Valentinian Gnosticism. You've got the pneumatic on top, the minority, the spiritual ones who have the divine spark. And are destined to return to the pleroma of light. And they don't need conventional religion anymore. They're above and beyond it, and for a good reason, because the soulish or natural ones, they are the conventionally religious, whether you're talking about Jews, Christians, pagans, whatever. They're trying to be good and to do good, but they think that the guide to that behavior is the laws of their religion. But what they don't understand is that these religions were created and these laws promulgated by the archons. So when you obey them, you are worshiping and serving them. Now, granted, they're not teaching you to do evil, right? Because They want to maintain the world system, which means it can't be chaos, right? So naturally, even they are interested in the mob. Suppose the mafia runs Chicago like they did in the old days. That's got a bad side to it, but it's better than total rioting in the streets with no government, right? And this is exactly the idea in the Old Testament of the fallen sons of God or fallen angels. They do have charge of the various nations of the earth, but there's something wrong. They're mismanaging their fiefdoms, but it's better than nothing. No government. I once out in Berkeley, California, saw a bumper sticker that said, "There's no government like no government." Anarchists, a very naive view, in my opinion. Well, we don't want that. So, yeah, they're not going to say, "Thou shalt kill, thou shalt commit adultery." No, they know that kind of stuff makes a viable society impossible. And they want to rule a community of people, not just a predatory species. No, that's the third group. The criminals, the thugs, the two-legged animals that have no real conscience or interest in spiritual things, etc. So you got the pneumatikoi, the pneumatics, the spiritual ones at the top. You've got right below them the soulish or natural ones, the psychikoi, psyche, soul, and then below them the carnal ones that are just fleshly, just material, just two-legged animals. Now, where does the crucifixion fit in? Because he just mentioned it. Well, in Valentinianism, they said, what do we make of the psychikoi, the natural ones, the conventional Christians, Jews, etc.? Are they just damned? Well, no. But they aren't up to understanding the gnosis because they don't have the spark and of the spirit. When we speak spiritual truths, it's only the pneumatics, the spiritual people can even understand them. But the poor psychikoi, the pew potatoes, as I call them, they can't understand that because they just haven't got the spark enabling them to do it. They don't have the spirit. But Christ died to save those of the psychikoi who have faith in him. So they're okay, right? They can be saved, even though it's not the ultimate union with the Godhead. Maybe it's just going to heaven to play your harp. Not bad, right? But what about the others? Apparently, when the Pauline epistles never mention hell or imply anybody's going there, it leaves us to infer that the unrighteous are just going to die like animals do, and that's the end of them. So this is a big thing that sure makes sense in a Gnostic context. It's not just the terminology that is similar. That might be a coincidence, but even the little that is said about these people here implies what Valentinus said. And of course, he said he did get it ultimately from Paul. Let's see, then chapter 3, verse 1. The trouble is, brothers, that when I first came among you, I could not speak to you as to pneumatics, spiritual adepts, but as to carnal, as to mere infants, new initiates in Christ. It was milk I gave you to drink, not solid food, because that's all you were ready for. But you are still not capable of more even now, for you are still carnal. For insofar as jealousy and strife flourish among you, are you not carnal, conducting yourself in a merely human manner? For whenever anyone says, I myself belong to Paul, and another replies, well, I belong to Apollo, are you not mere mortals? After all, what is Apollo? Apollo's the same thing in Greek. What is Apollo and what is Paul? Merely servants through whom you came to believe, each as the Lord assigned. I planted, Apollo watered. He came after I founded the church and worked with you. True, but it was God who made it grow. As Van Manen noticed, there is a retrospective sense here that it's like the history of the foundation of the church is well in the past, and Paul, or the writer, can demarcate the founder Paul from the next guy to come along, Apollo or Apollos, and this seems a bit late for Paul. You can't prove that. But it strikes me that in combination with these other signs of a later authorship, that might sound pretty good as an interpretation of this. Okay, verse 7, just as in agriculture, who did the planting and who did the watering is quite immaterial, but only God who caused the growth matters. So the one who plants and the one who waters, it's all the same, and each will receive the appropriate reward his particular labors have earned. Let's see. For if we are fellow laborers for God, you are God's farm, God's building project. Like an architect, I use the skill given me by God to lay the foundation, leaving it to another to do the actual building. And it's him and Apollos. Just let each subsequent builder watch how he does the construction. Let none imagine he may start over from a different foundation than the one I laid down, Jesus Christ. This seems to me, by the way, to be a kind of shot at the Petrinist and later Catholic claim that Simon Peter was the foundation of the church, right? Thou art Peter, the rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not be able to withstand its assault. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. That is, are you going to grant absolution for sins or retain them? Whatever rules you decide are best for the church, they'll be rubber stamped in heaven. And this sounds like he's saying some people are doing this. Those who say, I am of Cephas, for example, right? They're saying, well, he calls the shots. I'm with him. And no, Paul says, or this writer, Apollinus, says, I'm afraid that's not true. They're trying to supplant Jesus with Peter. Now, you remember what I said last time, right? If you have not yet fallen asleep at that point, where I suggested that this I am of Paul, I am of Cephas, I am of Apollo, and all that, that originally denoted that Cephas, Paul, Apollo, and Apollos, and Christ were rival figureheads on an equal footing. But as the other three began to wane, the others, they were reduced to a small membership and decided, well, what the heck, let's all become Christians. And if they will agree to give our founders some dignity and stature in their pantheon, just like they did John the Baptist, his disciples continued on till today as the Mandeans. But some of them heeded the Christian call and said, well, what the heck, all right. If you'll give proper recognition to John, oh, by all means. And so John becomes the cousin of Jesus and the forerunner of Jesus. In the same way, I think that's what happened with Paul, Peter, and Apollos. And That's what lies beneath this. Yeah, can't start over with a new foundation. Okay, 12. Now, whether anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, and precious stones on the one hand, or wood, hay, and stubble on the other, the quality of each one's work will be revealed for all to see. It is the day of judgment that will reveal it, because fire will make it clear, and the fire will test the work of each to see what quality it has. If what anyone has erected on that foundation survives the ordeal, he will receive a reward. But 15, if anyone's construction is burned up, he will be left empty-handed. He himself will be saved, like a burned out homeowner grateful to have saved his skin. Don't you understand that together you are a shrine of God, that God's Spirit lives among you? Well, whoever defiles the shrine of God, God will render him profane, no longer a shrine. For God's shrine is holy, and you are that shrine. Now, whose work is going to burn up? Well, of course, the ones that used inferior materials, wood, hay, and stubble. Which is like, false doctrine. It's like building your house on sand in the Sermon on the Mount, right? 18, let no one kid himself. If anyone among you considers himself wise by worldly standards. Hey, say, old man, which philosopher are you reading this week? Let him become a moron. A simpleton, but the word actually is moros. Moron is simply a transliteration of it. Let him become a moron. That way he really will be wise. Moron vis-a-vis the highfalutin intellectuals. They'll say you're a moron, and in their book you are, but you're the one that has the last laugh. You'll be proven right. Yeah, because he really will be wise. 19, because the wisdom of this cosmos is nonsense to God. We know this, for it is written, the one who apprehends the wise in their cleverest moment. It's from Job 5:3. And again, the Lord is well aware of the reasonings of the sophists, that they are moot. Psalm 91:11. In view of this, let no one brag about mortal men, for all things belong to you. You do not belong to them, right? I belong to Paul. I belong to Apollos. No. You do not belong to them, whether Paul or Apollo or Cephas or the cosmos or life or death, either the present order or that which is coming. All these belong to you, just as you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. Okay. The original discussion of apostolic factionalism seems to end at this point. But a Catholicizing, you remember Bauer's theory of trying to get the Jewish and Hellenistic Christians together, Catholicizing redactor picks it up again from a different, alternative, non-Gnostic viewpoint in the next section. Let's see if we can get through that. We got a bit of time. 4:1. Thus, people ought to think of us as Christ's retainers and stewards in charge of doling out the mysteries of God. More than anything else, it is demanded of stewards that one be found reliable. And to me, it is insignificant if you judge me as unreliable, because he knows some people are, like the ones that prefer Cephas and Apollos and so on. Or if if I am judged on some court date before a mortal tribunal, but neither do I judge myself. You judge me or you take me to court somehow. That doesn't bother me. It's like Donald Trump in New York City court with these people coming after him with no definite crime in mind, but just trying to lock him up. He says, I'm not bothered with that. That can't really touch me. For I am not aware of any strike against me, but that does not vindicate me. No, the one to judge me is the Lord. See, 5. So do not rush to judgment ahead of time until the Lord arrives. It is he who will both expose to the light the things hidden in darkness and reveal the secret motivations. Now, all this, brothers, I have ventured to apply to myself and Apollo because of you, so that in our case you might learn no more than what is written, so that you do not make too much of either one at the expense of the other. That implies some kind of scriptural or quasi-scriptural source to back him up, but he doesn't specify it. There's no Old Testament citations in this argument. But at any rate, okay. Let me just see here. Okay. Verse 7, for what makes you so great? And what do you have that you did not receive? And if indeed you did receive it, why do you brag as if you hadn't? This reminds me always of what C.S. Lewis says, that if somebody compliments you, your hair is beautiful, you should say, oh, no, it's not, this crummy old rag of a hair I've got. No, why not say, yes, I like it too. I'm really happy it turned out well. But that's just being honest. But if you start bragging about it, hey, it looks pretty great, huh? It's all natural. What are you patting yourself on the back because of the color of your hair? Well, if you dyed it, I don't know if that is any different anyhow. This is not something you can take credit for. You can rejoice in it, but did you cause it? What do you have that you didn't get from outside when you think about it? If that's the case, you should be grateful for it. Don't put yourself down with false humility. There's certainly, you just sound like a jerk trying to take credit for it. And if indeed you did receive it, why do you brag as if you hadn't? Now you are sated. You are rich. Without us, you reign unopposed. But in fact, it is to our advantage that you reign, because perhaps we might be your co-regents. For sometimes I think God has assigned us apostles to bring up the rear in the triumphal procession, prisoners condemned to death. That's what the Roman conquerors would do. They'd bring a bunch of their chained up defeated soldiers in a huge parade with them in the cab of the chariot right at the beginning, as the crowd at the beginning of the procession. So the crowd is cheering them, right? Sometimes I think that God has assigned us apostles to bring up the rear in the triumphal procession, prisoners condemned to death. Why? because we were made a gladiatorial spectacle to the world, both to evil angels and to mortals alike. We are thus stage buffoons on account of Christ, but you are realistic in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. This is all sarcasm here. You are held in high esteem while we are dishonored. Even now we both hunger and thirst, go naked and get beaten up, flee from place to place, and are reduced to working with our hands. Insulted, we bless. Persecuted, we endure. Though slandered, we act the paraclete. Let's see here. Do I need to? Okay, we became the very filth of the world, scrubbed off rust and dirt, and still are. My motive in writing these things is not to shame you, but rather to admonish my beloved children. For while you might have 10,000 pedagogues in the things of Christ, you can have only one Father, and in the religion of Christ Jesus, I have fathered you by means of the gospel. Thus, I urge you, become imitators of me. Indeed, this is precisely why I sent you Timothy, my beloved and reliable child in the Lord's family, whose conduct will remind you of my own in the way of Christ Jesus, that which I teach everywhere in every assembly. Some egos have become inflated as if they would never have to answer to me, but I will come quickly to you if the Lord allows, and I will ascertain the truth of the matter, not just the talk of those inflated egos, but whether there is any power behind it. For the kingdom of God does not come by mere talk, but in power. Which would you prefer, that I come to you with a rod ready to punish, or in love and a gentle spirit? Okay, yeah, well, I guess I'm going to stop there and see if we've got some questions. Hopefully we do. Let's see. Let's get over to comments. Yes. Seems as if we do. Oh, that's good news. Okay. Faithful Stephen Griffiths greets us with a hi, folks. Hi right back to you. Oh, my God. Constellation Pegasus, a generous fellow, $99.99. Holy mackerel, thank you. My goal of this researching was to leave the Watchtower. It took years to leave Christianity and all religion. What is my goal now? To retire and get a degree studying particle physics, quantum chromodynamics. Too many bad emotions that trigger me in the Bible. Wow. Boy, you're really making me sound like as Woody Allen once said, the guy that sells pencils outside of Bloomingdale's. Man, I wish you well. And I know you got loads of brains for adequate to the job. Thank you again. Constellation Pegasus adds, researching the Bible isn't for the faint of heart. And it continues, when you realize the Hebrew Bible words describe a structural flat earth and dome cosmology, plus the rabbinical writings, you just can't come back from that. It's truly a shock. Amen to that. He apologizes. He misspelled chromodynamics, but I could pronounce it anyhow. Carrot Top 420. People back then did believe the earth was a flat disk. You can't hold that against them. They couldn't include a globe in their theology until it was discovered that earth was a ball. Yeah, I know Constellation Pegasus knows that too. I'm sure what he means is that if you're going to take the understandable errors of the ancients as the word of God, and it's true despite what modern science knows, then you're going to be a victim of cognitive dissonance the rest of your life. You know better. Let's see here. Constellation Pegasus, I don't have the emotional strength to get deep into the facts and context to how this all morphed into our time. I just get too mad about it. This thing called the universe is more important to me now. And again, I'm glad we're hearing a good bit from Constellation Pegasus. He says to Carrot Top 420, the point is that the Bible supports it. No revelation from God here, not to mention all of the other fails the Bible suffers from. Yeah, it just can't be a revelation to a God who can see what it actually looks like by looking out his window. Carrot Top 420 says, explaining how it morphed into the present is the easiest part. It's because the rest of the world didn't follow the rules of the explained. The only thing worse is when they do follow it. Let's see. And he continues, LOL, the time-honored truth of all belief is God in God only agrees with the explainer. Everyone else is deceived, manipulated, hypnotized, or evil. Yeah, it's like, was it Benjamin Franklin said, I'm the only Orthodox Christian I know, aren't you? Or someone else said, orthodoxy is always in the first person, heresy is in the second or the third. Yeah, boy. Carrot Top says, but yes, of course, the Bible supports ancient beliefs. It's ancient. The writers were ancient. The human condition is ancient. Don't need a telescope to do psychology. Thinking about it more, I don't see how believing the earth is flat or globe changes much of anything to an individual. Even if it was flat, you're in the center, so you won't fall off in either case. This reminds me of something that came up in a Sherlock Holmes story. Somehow, Holmes is talking to Dr. Watson, and Watson says something about some guy that believes the earth is flat. What do you think of that, Holmes? And he says that, frankly, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I have no opinion on the matter. You don't, I say, Holmes. How can that be? And he says, it doesn't bear on my investigations. If it did, I'd be interested in it. Whoa. Yeah, let's see. Petmure says, what is this now? Petmure says, loved your exegesis on Romans and more in Corinthians. I appreciate that. I'm glad to know it isn't just gibberish. But I would say that this means, my friend, that you have the Spirit and can interpret the words given by the Spirit. Of course, I'm kidding there, but you're obviously a very discerning person. Yeah. Then he says, do you think First Corinthians was entirely written by Paul? No, I think it's a patchwork of later Paulinist opinions. And in fact, looking, as we'll see, you have one opinion stated in a chapter or two, and then right behind it, what seems like a refutation. Again and again, we'll find this. So it seems to me what we have is really a patchwork quilt. And, you'd find which is what I think about the Gospel of John, if you remember, that you've got different Christologies in there because different scribes belonging to different schismatic Johannine groups had accommodated it to their theology. And finally, scribes had a bunch of these different versions of John, and they didn't know what was original and what wasn't. So they just tried to combine all the stuff as best they could. Okay. Well, I can't believe it, but that's it, astonishingly. I should add one other note I should have mentioned. When he says that those who have the Spirit understand the things spoken by the Spirit, and those who don't have it cannot understand. And not only do they not, but they can't. I begin to wonder if that isn't pointing forward to the discussion of speaking in tongues, glossolalia, and because that is revelations from the Spirit. That cannot be uttered, as Paul says in 2 Corinthians. That is, it isn't amenable to intelligible speech, but it can be interpreted as the gist of it, the point of it can be discerned by somebody with a gift of interpreting tongues, which sounds just like the Oracle of Delphi. She would inhale this natural gas seeping through the stones of the cave in which she operated. And then she would say some kind of inspired gibberish, but the interpreter would tune in, or so they believed, and say, here's what she's saying. If you do attack today, a great empire will fall. Oh, well, okay, sounds good. She didn't say which one. Sort of an escape valve. You win no matter what the outcome is. But it sounds like they're talking about that it's the tongues of angels, as we will hear. And if you don't have somebody on hand who can interpret it, and by the way, a good parallel with that would be Daniel. When the hand, this disembodied hand, traces letters on the wall in Belshazzar's palace, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. That's not Hebrew; it's gibberish. And so Belshazzar is rubbing his noggin, saying, "What the heck is this?" It's obviously some supernatural message, but what? So, Daniel is an oracle. He interprets dreams. Maybe he could make sense of this. So they bring him in, and he does look at it, and he say, "Okay, here's what it means. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting." And this is a prediction that Cyrus the Persian is at the gates and he's going to take over Babylon. So you've come up short, Your Majesty. And so that's kind of what's going on in speaking in tongues. It's not any earthly language, but it's the tongues of angels. And an interpreter can somehow give you the gist. I realize there's a problem there because why couldn't the speaker in tongues simply say that to begin with? Well, because some of them did, right? The prophets spoke intelligibly when inspired. Why this? Who knows? But there were two different things that kind of wound up meaning the same thing. So, and what does Paul say? That he says limit the tongue's utterances to 2 or 3 at the most, because suppose some outsider comes in, I wonder what these Christians are about, and he hears everybody, oh, Shigamahanda, Shambhala, see the whole bunch of you ranting. He's going to think, this is a loony bin. And you don't want that, right? You want to attract them, not freak them out, right? And so, yeah, that fits here. The ungifted will say the what we know to be the wisdom of God is a bunch of nonsense. So, have a care how you present yourself. Oh, okay. Pet Muir says, is there any possibility Moses was a true character in history? I would just say there's no reason to think so, because the six items that begin his story seem, well, seven if you count the Nile thing. They seem to have been borrowed from Sargon of Akkad, who was cast adrift on a river in a basket and was found and grew up to become the emperor. And the next six are borrowed from the Genesis stories of Jacob. God attacks the patriarch on the road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then after that, all the stories in which Moses appear are really stories explaining the names of places that the Israelite wanderers happened to stay, or oases. And they called it so-and-so because this happened there. And so forth. Or they explain the origin of a ritual that supposedly began under Moses, or why Israelites relate in a good or usually bad way with other nations they come across. They're not really about Moses. He's just sort of the needful character to get the point across. So there's no real biographical information about Mo, and it just, if there conceivably could have been a Moses, but it just seems so really a house built on sand, historically speaking. So I don't think so. Well, okay, I guess that's it for today, and I'll look forward to seeing you tonight at 6 for the Bible Geek. Thanks for being with us.